Now heavy metal is striking fear into the hearts of this generation.
In tonight's 90s feature, reporter Dylan Tate confronts the forces of evil on the dark side of devil rock.
The reason people pick on the heavy metal music and its fans so much is because the adults in this world are actually jealous of the freedom we have. They kind of look at the young kids who are just like have not a care in the world, like, yeah, party! And they're kind of like angry that they no longer have this freedom.
The suspect, Richard Ramirez. And the question is, did the band AC/DC drive him onto a personal highway to hell? The killer left behind a baseball cap embroidered with the logo AC/DC.
Rock and roll debate goes on. Next stop, Thursday, Washington, D.C., when Frank Zappa, Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, and others will testify before a congressional committee. Rob.
The kids that listen to this music are killing themselves and each other because of it. The music is called heavy metal.
In the 1980s, a group of powerful Washington wives decided rock and roll had gone too far. They made a hit list of the most dangerous songs they called the Filthy 15, and their main target was heavy metal. This is the story of how artists fought back against government censorship and won.
A reclusive behavior pattern and listening exclusively to heavy metal rock music, almost to the point of addiction. When one or more of these warning signs are evident, you should look further for ritual items such as a pentagram or other satanic symbols, black or red robes, a decorative dagger or knife.
The early 1980s were a tense time. Against the backdrop of Ronald Reagan's conservative America, a strange and powerful fear began to sweep the nation, the Satanic Panic. It was a moral hysteria, a widespread belief that a secret network of satanic cults was preying on the nation's youth through daycare centers, games like Dungeons and Dragons, and especially through music. Suddenly, the devil was everywhere. Televangelists preached about the evils of pop culture, and news reports fanned the flames of paranoia. At the center of this storm was a new, defiant sound, heavy metal. With its loud guitars, aggressive riffs, and theatrical imagery, it was the perfect folk devil for a nervous generation of parents. Bands like Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, and Mötley Crüe weren't just musicians anymore. They were seen as recruiters for the occult. People genuinely believed that listening to these records could lead to violence, suicide, and devil worship. This fear got so bad that some parents even took bands like Judas Priest to court, accusing them of hiding subliminal messages in their songs that drove their children to suicide. The courts couldn't prove the claim, but the damage was done. Metal was now seen as a spiritual threat, a dangerous force that adults couldn't control. It wasn't just music anymore. It was a battle for the souls of America's youth.
I decided to get involved because I began to see the kind of rock lyrics that my kids were being exposed to. It shocked me, made me angry. I heard all these songs about masturbation, oral sex, F-wording, and it was terrible.
Every culture war has a flashpoint, and for the war on metal, that moment came in 1984. It started when Tipper Gore, wife of then-Senator Al Gore, bought Prince's album Purple Rain for their 11-year-old daughter. As the song Darling Nikki played, Gore was horrified to hear lyrics about a woman masturbating with a magazine. That was it. She wasn't just a concerned mom anymore, she was on a mission. She soon joined forces with 3 other influential women in Washington, D.C., Susan Baker, wife of the Treasury Secretary, Pam Hauer, an activist and wife of a major real estate developer, and Sally Nevius, wife of the D.C. City Council chairman. Together, they became known as the Washington Wives. And in May of 1985, they founded the Parents Music Resource Center, or PMRC. Their stated goal wasn't to ban music outright. Instead, they wanted a system to help parents know what their kids were listening to. They proposed a rating system, just like for movies with letters for specific content. O for occult, S for sex, D for drugs, and V for violence. They used their political connections to pressure the music industry, painting popular music and especially heavy metal as a direct threat to children. The stage was set, and the opening shot was a single, notorious list. To focus their attack, the PMRC put together a list of 15 songs they considered the most obscene in popular music. They called it the Filthy 15. This list became their Exhibit A, a catalog of sins that they shared with media outlets all over the country. The list was a weird mix of pop and metal, targeting some of the biggest artists of the day. Prince's Darling Nikki was on it for sex, right alongside Sheena Easton's Sugar Walls, a song Prince himself had written. Pop icons like Madonna and Cyndi Lauper even made the cut for being too sexually suggestive. But the real heart of the list was metal and hard rock. Judas Priest was called out for the lyrics in Eat Me Alive. Mötley Crüe's Bastard was flagged for violence, even though the band said it was a song about betrayal, not an incitement to violence. Two of metal's most theatrical bands, Merciful Fate and Venom, were flagged under the occult category, their dark imagery serving as perfect evidence for the PMRC's claims of satanic influence. And then there was AC/DC. Their song, Let Me Put My Love Into You, was put on the list for its sexual lyrics. For a band that was already no stranger to controversy, this was just adding fuel to the fire. They dismissed the censorship attempts as intolerance, but the Filthy 15 cemented their place as one of the PMRC's top enemies.
Special report on evil rock by examining the possible connection between heavy metal and one of the most heinous crimes Los Angeles has ever seen. Larry.
Thank you very much, Terry. The crime is the walk-in killings. The suspect, Richard Ramirez. And the question is, did the band AC/DC drive him onto a personal highway to hell?
Just as the PMRC's campaign hit its peak in the summer of 1985, a real-life monster was terrorizing California. A brutal serial killer named Richard Ramirez left at least 13 people dead. The media called him the Night Stalker. And through a twisted series of coincidences, AC/DC was dragged right into the nightmare. At one of the crime scenes, Ramirez left behind an AC/DC hat. When he was finally arrested, it was widely reported that he was a huge AC/DC fan. Worse, the media ran with the idea that the band's song Night Prowler, from their 1979 album Highway to Hell, had inspired his crimes. The connection was a media sensation. AC/DC wasn't just a band anymore, they were the soundtrack to murder. The backlash was immediate. The band got death threats, concerts were picketed, and their public image took a massive hit. The band members were horrified. Brian Johnson called the association sickening. Malcolm Young tried to explain that the song was just about a kid sneaking into his girlfriend's bedroom at night. A night prowler, not a night stalker.
The so-called Night Stalker, accused of murdering 15 people in California, was influenced by the AC/DC song Night Prowler.
I mean, you get your inspiration from something. In the case of that song, it's been completely taken out of context. The story come from, mainly there was a guy that used to steal underwear off people's laundry lines. And that inspired, well, it wasn't Brian that wrote the lyrics, it was a guy, Bon Scott, since dead. That inspired him to go out and write a song about that.
That's what Night Prowler's about.
That's what Night Prowler is about.
But in the climate of the satanic panic, nobody was listening to the details. The incident became a chilling example of how metal was being used as a scapegoat for society's fears. While the band would eventually play Night Prowler live again in later years, the controversy left a permanent scar. On September 19, 1985, the culture war landed in the U.S. Senate. The hearing was a spectacle. Tipper Gore and the PMRC presented their case, showing album covers and reading explicit lyrics into the congressional record. They brought in experts who linked rock music to everything from incest to the Son of Sam killer. It was a full-scale moral assault. But then, it was time for the defense. And it was a trio no one saw coming. Folk singer John Denver, avant-garde composer Frank Zappa, and the frontman of Twisted Sister Dee Snider. John Denver, a clean-cut, beloved artist, shocked everyone by arguing that censorship was a slippery slope. He warned that a system designed to label a band like WASP could one day be turned against his own music.
Again, I think it goes beyond reading the word, and I bring up again the song Rocky Mountain High. You know, some people, high is high, and high is getting stoned, and high is a feeling of elation, a celebration in life. As I told the people in the Soviet Union when I had the privilege of singing for them there, I sang Rocky Mountain High, and then I described what high meant to me, and then I said to them, that's how I feel having the privilege of singing for you. That is how I feel having the opportunity to participate in my government here today.
Thank you, man.
Frank Zappa, the intellectual provocateur, came armed with a razor-sharp wit. He famously called the PMRC's proposal an ill-conceived piece of nonsense and a sinister kind of toilet training program. Zappa surgically dismantled their arguments, even pointing out the massive conflict of interest, since several senators on the committee were married to PMRC members.
Now, there are little technical difficulties here, and also you have the problem of having somebody in the position of deciding what's good, what's bad, what's talking about the devil, what's too violent, and and the rest of that stuff. But the point that I've made before is that when you rate the album, you're rating the individual because he takes personal responsibility for the music, and in the movies, the actors who are performing in the movie, it doesn't hurt them.
But the most iconic moment belonged to Dee Snider. He walked in dressed in full rock and roll gear, torn denim, big hair, sleeveless t-shirt. The committee members practically sneered at him. Then he started to speak, and out came the voice of an articulate, intelligent, and passionate defender of his art. He introduced himself as a husband, a father, and a Christian who didn't drink, smoke, or do drugs.
I'd like to tell the committee a little bit about myself. I'm 30 years old. I'm married. I have a 3-year-old son. I was born and raised a Christian, and I still adhere to those principles. Believe it or not, I do not drink, I do not smoke, and I do not do drugs.
One by one, he took their accusations apart. He revealed that Tipper Gore had completely misinterpreted his song, Under the Blade, which he claimed was about sadomasochism. Snider explained it was about his guitarist's fear of throat surgery, stating the only filth was in her mind.
In this article, Ms. Gore claimed that one of my songs, Under the Blade, had lyrics encouraging sadomasochism, bondage, and rape. The lyrics she quoted have absolutely nothing to do with these topics. On the contrary, the words in question are about surgery and the fear that it instills in people. Furthermore, the reader of this article is led to believe that the 3 lines she quotes go together in the song, when, as you can see from reading the lyrics, the first 2 lines she cites are an edited phrase from the 2nd verse, and the 3rd line is a misquote of a line from the chorus. That the writer could misquote me is curious, since we make it a point to print all our lyrics on the inner sleeve of every album. As the creator of Under the Blade, I can say categorically that the only sadomasochism, bondage, and rape in this song is in the mind of Ms. Gore.
He defended the We're Not Gonna Take It music video by comparing its cartoon violence to Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner.
On this list is our song, We're Not Gonna Take It, upon which has been bestowed a V rating indicating violent, lyrical content. You'll note from the lyrics before you that there is absolutely no violence of any type either sung about or implied anywhere in the song. The video for We're Not Gonna Take It was simply meant to be a cartoon with human actors playing variations on the Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote theme. Each stunt was selected from my extensive personal collection of cartoons. You'll note when you watch the entire video that after each catastrophe our villain suffers through, in the next sequence he reappears unharmed by any previous attack, no worse for the wear. By the way, I'm very pleased to note that the United Way of America has been granted a request to use portions of our We're Not Going to Take It video in a program they are producing on the subject of the changing American family. They asked for it because of its, quote, lighthearted way of talking about communicating with teenagers, unquote. It is gratifying that an organization as respected as the United Way of America appreciates where we're coming from. I've included a copy of the United Way's request as part of my written testimony.
With every sentence, the senator's jaws dropped. D. Snyder shattered their stereotype of the dumb metalhead. He had won the argument. In the end, no laws were passed. The government didn't create a ratings board, but facing immense political pressure, the Recording Industry Association of America, RIAA, caved. On November 1st, 1985, they voluntarily agreed to put a generic warning label on albums with explicit content. The iconic black and white Parental Advisory Explicit Lyrics sticker was born. On the surface, it looked like a win for the PMRC. They got their warning label. But the victory came with a huge unintended consequence. The sticker didn't scare young fans away. It did the exact opposite. It became a beacon, a badge of honor. For a generation of rebellious kids, that little label was a marketing tool that screamed, "Your parents will hate this." It told them exactly which albums to buy. Instead of hurting sales, the sticker often boosted them. The attempt at censorship backfired, turning the warning into an advertisement for rebellion. The PMRC wanted to control what kids were listening to, but they only made the forbidden fruit taste sweeter. The 1985 hearings were a turning point, but the fight was far from over. The defiance that Zappa, Snyder, and Denver showed in Washington lit a fire under the music world. Artists didn't just accept the sticker. They used their music to fight back. In 1988, Megadeth released Hook and Mouth, a blistering attack on the PMRC with the lyric, "This is my right, my freedom of speech."
In 1984, when Peace Sells But Who's Buying was getting ready to come out, we had been told that we were going to get a sticker on our record, and we voluntarily put the sticker on our record, and it was because of some of the lyrics on the record that Tipper Gore didn't like, and by the time that the second record came out, which was our third record, the first one didn't get stickered. The third record, So Far So Good So What, which was the second one to get stickered, by the time that came out, I'd already written a song called Hook and Mouth because I was really pretty pissed off that this vice president's wife would be telling us what we need to listen to.
The liner notes even included the First Amendment. That same year, Flotsam and Jetsam fired back with their song, Hard on You. A year later, Ice-T took direct aim at Tipper Gore in his track Freedom of Speech, with lyrics too explicit to repeat here. But the most visceral protest came in 1993 at Lollapalooza. The members of Rage Against the Machine walked on stage completely naked, mouths covered with duct tape and PMRC scrawled across their chests. They stood in silent protest for 15 minutes as feedback howled from their instruments, a powerful, confrontational statement against censorship without saying a word. These artists had been targeted, scrutinized, and labeled, but they refused to be silenced. They transformed the PMRC's crusade from a threat into a badge of honor, proving that trying to control art often just makes it stronger. This battle for artistic freedom in the 80s remains one of the most important chapters in music history. What are your memories of the Satanic Panic or the Parental Advisory sticker? Did it ever make you want to buy an album more? Let us know in the comments. Looking back, the war on metal feels like something from another era. The PMRC eventually faded away in the mid-90s, their crusade made almost irrelevant by the rise of digital music. The sticker that caused so much trouble is now just a piece of metadata you can easily filter out. Tipper Gore herself later admitted the hearings probably frightened artists more than she intended. The satanic panic fizzled out, not because the devil was defeated, but because the fears were proven to be baseless. No vast network of satanic cults was ever found. So, who really won? The PMRC got their sticker, but they completely lost the culture war. They failed to censor the music. In fact, they made it more popular, more powerful, and more important than ever before. The government declared war on metal, but in the end, the music never stopped playing. Thanks for watching.